In the vast expanse of space, where stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across an endless black canvas, a message traveled through the void. It was ancient, fragmented, and carried on faint electromagnetic waves that had journeyed for centuries. The signal reached the Krillian Empire, a civilization known for its dominance over countless worlds. Their ships were sleek and menacing, their weapons unmatched, and their leader, Vorthak, ruled with an iron grip. The message came from Earth, a small blue planet tucked away in a quiet corner of the galaxy. To the Krillians, it meant nothing, just another primitive world among billions. But the content of the transmission caught their attention. Translated into multiple languages, the words echoed ominously. Human ships are special, and you'll soon find out why. At first, Vorthak laughed at the absurdity of such a claim. Humans? Special? They were barely more than animals scratching at the surface of space exploration. Vorthak dismissed the warning as meaningless bravado. He turned to his advisors, who stood silently around him in the grand command chamber aboard his flagship. Primitive creatures, he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. They think they can intimidate us with empty threats. Prepare a fleet to investigate this so-called special species. If they resist, we will crush them. Far away on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Lucas Hayes sat in the command chair of the SS Vanguard. The ship hummed softly beneath his feet, its systems running smoothly as it drifted through uncharted territory. Lucas was a man of average height, with short brown hair streaked with gray and piercing blue eyes that always seemed to be calculating something. His crew trusted him implicitly, not because he was fearless, but because he never let fear get in the way of doing what needed to be done. Beside him stood Lieutenant Rachel Blake, his second in command. She was sharp-witted and resourceful, with dark hair tied neatly into a bun and a no-nonsense attitude that matched her reputation. As she studied the navigation display, she frowned slightly. "Captain," she said, glancing up at Lucas, "we're approaching the edge of explored space. Are you sure we should go any further?" Lucas leaned back in his chair, his expression calm but thoughtful. "Rachel, humanity didn't get this far by staying safe," he replied. "We've faced worse odds before. Besides, we're just patrolling. What's the worst that could happen?" Rachel raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. She knew better than to try changing Lucas's mind once he'd made a decision. Instead, she turned her focus back to the controls, double-checking everything to ensure they were ready for whatever lay ahead. Unbeknownst to them, trouble was already on the horizon. Light years away, the Krillian fleet mobilized under Vorthak's orders. Dozens of massive warships surged forward, their engines glowing bright against the darkness of space. Each vessel bristled with weapons capable of obliterating entire planets. For the Krillians, this mission was routine, a show of force designed to remind lesser civilizations of their place. As the two forces drew closer together, unaware of each other's presence, tensions began to rise aboard both fleets. On the HFY Vanguard, engineer Daniel Kim worked tirelessly in the engine room. A brilliant young man with glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, Daniel was responsible for maintaining the ship's most critical systems. Today, however, he felt uneasy. Something about the silence outside set his nerves on edge. "Everything okay down here?" asked Sergeant Emily Ford, poking her head into the engine room. She was tough, with a no-nonsense demeanor that earned her respect throughout the crew. Her role as head of security kept her constantly alert, and she had learned to trust her instincts. Daniel hesitated before answering. "Yeah, I guess so," he said finally. "It's just quiet out there. Too quiet." Emily nodded slowly. "You're not wrong. Let me know if anything changes." With that, she disappeared back toward the armory, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts. Meanwhile, aboard the Krillian flagship, Vorthak paced impatiently. His crimson armor gleamed under the dim red lights of the bridge, and his claws clicked softly against the metallic floor. Despite his confidence, there was a part of him that couldn't shake the unease brought on by that cryptic message from Earth. Could these humans truly pose a threat? No, he decided. It was impossible. Still, He ordered his fleet to proceed with caution. Hours passed, and the distance between the two sides narrowed. Finally, the moment of contact arrived. Without warning, the Krillian fleet emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the lone human ship. The sudden appearance of dozens of alien vessels sent shockwaves through the Vanguard's crew. Alarms blared and everyone scrambled to their stations. On the bridge, Lucas remained calm despite the chaos erupting around him. "Hail them," he instructed, his voice steady. Rachel complied, opening a communication channel. The face of Vorthak appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features twisted into a sneer. "Humans," he growled, "you have entered Krillian territory. Surrender immediately or face annihilation." Lucas stared at the screen, unfazed. "I'm afraid we don't take orders from bullies," he replied coolly. "If you want to fight, you'll get one." Vorthak's eyes narrowed, and he gave the order to fire. Energy beams lanced out from the Krillian ships, striking the Vanguard with devastating force. The impact rattled the crew, throwing some off balance. But instead of collapsing under the assault, the human ship absorbed the energy, its hull shimmering briefly before returning to normal. "What the?" Rachel exclaimed, staring at the damage report in disbelief. "No structural damage, none at all." Lucas allowed himself a small smile. "Told you we'd be fine," he said, turning to Rachel. "Now let's show them what we're made of." Deep. Within the ship, Athena, the artificial intelligence core, processed the incoming data at lightning speed. Designed to learn and adapt, the system analyzed each attack, identifying patterns and weaknesses in the Krillian weaponry. Within seconds, it formulated countermeasures and relayed instructions to the crew. Back on the Krillian flagship, confusion spread among the officers. "How is this possible?" one of them demanded. "Their ship should be destroyed." Vorthak clenched his fists, his pride wounded. These humans were proving to be more resilient than he had anticipated. But he refused to admit defeat. Not yet. "Increase firepower," he snarled. "Bring every weapon online. We will tear them apart." And so the battle began in earnest, with the fate of humanity hanging precariously in the balance. The battle between the Krillian fleet and the SS Vanguard quickly escalated into a dazzling display of light and energy. The alien ships unleashed wave after wave of attacks, their weapons glowing brightly as they fired upon the human vessel. To anyone watching, it seemed impossible that the Vanguard could survive such an onslaught. Yet with each strike, the ship absorbed the energy, its hull shimmering faintly as if shrugging off the blows. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Lucas Hayes watched the chaos unfold on the main screen. His expression remained calm, even as the ship rocked slightly from the impacts. "Status report," he said, his voice steady. Lieutenant Rachel Blake glanced at her console. Her fingers moved swiftly over the controls, checking the damage readings. "No structural damage," she confirmed. "The nanotech is holding up perfectly." Lucas nodded, satisfied but not surprised. He had known the Vanguard was special, built with cutting-edge technology that made it unlike any other ship in existence. Its outer layer was coated with adaptive nanotechnology, capable of repairing itself and learning from every attack. It wasn't just a ship. It was a living, breathing machine designed to outsmart anything thrown at it. "Good," Lucas replied. "Let's give them something to think about." He turned to Rachel. "Activate defensive countermeasures." Rachel pressed a series of buttons and the Vanguard responded instantly. Energy shields flared to life around the ship, deflecting incoming fire and sending some of the blasts ricocheting back toward the Krillians. A few alien ships were caught off guard, their own weapons rebounding and damaging their hulls. In the SIO engine room, engineer Daniel Kim monitored the systems closely. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he worked tirelessly to keep everything running smoothly. The nanotech was adapting faster than expected, but the strain on the ship's core was increasing. If they pushed it too hard, there was a risk of overload. "How? Are we holding up?" asked Sergeant Emily Ford, appearing beside him. She carried a rifle slung across her shoulder, ready for anything. "We're okay. For now," Daniel replied, his eyes glued to the monitors. But Athena's working overtime. We need to stay ahead of whatever those aliens throw at us next. Emily frowned. They won't stop until they've wiped us out. You heard what their leader said. They don't take prisoners. Daniel nodded grimly. Then we'll have to make sure they can't hit us. Back on the Krillian flagship, Vorthak paced furiously. His crimson armor clinked softly with each step, and his tail lashed behind him in frustration. Never before had he encountered an enemy like this. Every shot fired only seemed to make the human ship stronger. Reports flooded in from his officers, detailing failed attempts to breach the Vanguard's defenses. This is unacceptable, Vorthak roared, slamming his clawed hand onto the command console. Analyze their technology, find a weakness. His engineers scrambled to comply, scanning the Vanguard with advanced sensors. What they discovered left them stunned. The human ship wasn't just equipped with standard shielding. It was actively evolving, adapting to every new threat in real time. The nanotechnology coating its surface repaired damage instantly and grew more efficient with each attack. Impossible, muttered one of the engineers. How could primitives develop such advanced tech? Vorthak ignored the comment. Instead, he focused on finding a solution. These humans were proving to be far more dangerous than he had anticipated. If they couldn't destroy the Vanguard, outright perhaps they could disable it instead. Prepare boarding parties, he ordered. We will infiltrate their ship and dismantle it from within. As the Krillians prepared for their next move, the crew of the Vanguard braced themselves for another round of attacks. On the bridge, Lucas studied the enemy fleet carefully. Something about their movements didn't sit right with him. They weren't firing as aggressively as before, and several ships had shifted positions, forming a tighter formation around the flagship. They're planning something, Lucas said aloud. Rachel, keep an eye on their patterns. I want to know the moment they change tactics. Aye, Captain, Rachel replied, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain, called out Ensign Michael Carter, who manned the sensor station. Multiple vessels detaching from the main fleet. They're heading straight for us. Lucas leaned forward in his chair, his mind racing. Boarding parties, he muttered under his breath. Turning to Rachel, he gave a sharp nod. Lock down all access points. Activate internal defenses. The crew sprang into action. Automated turrets deployed along the corridors, while bulkheads sealed off critical areas of the ship. In the armory, Emily armed herself and her squad, preparing to meet the invaders head-on. When the Krillian boarding parties breached the hull, they found themselves facing traps laid by Daniel and his team. Hidden panels released non-lethal gas that disoriented the aliens, while false walls concealed ambushes set by the Marines. Emily led her team through the narrow corridors, picking off the confused invaders one by one. They're tougher than they look, Emily admitted over the comms, taking cover behind a fallen crate as plasma bolts whizzed past. But they're not getting past us. Meanwhile, back on the bridge, Lucas executed a daring maneuver. Using the Vanguard's experimental jump drive, he teleported the ship directly into the heart of the Krillian formation. The sudden appearance of the human vessel caused chaos among the alien fleet, scattering their ships and disrupting their coordination. Vorthak stared in disbelief as the Vanguard reappeared mere kilometers away from his flagship. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. These humans weren't just fighting. They were thinking, adapting, and innovating faster than any foe he had ever faced. Target their command ship, Lucas ordered, his voice firm. Let's end this. The Vanguard unleashed a barrage of precision strikes targeting key systems on the Krillian flagship. Shields collapsed, weapons went offline, and panic spread among the crew. Vorthak bellowed orders, trying desperately to regain control. But it was too late. The tide of the battle had turned. As the Krillian fleet retreated, battered and humiliated, Lucas allowed himself a small smile. The Vanguard had proven itself more than capable of standing toe-to-toe with even the most advanced species. But he knew this victory was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, other threats lurked, waiting for their chance to challenge humanity. For now, though, the crew celebrated their hard-fought win. Rachel approached Lucas, her usual stern expression softened by relief. That was close, she said. Too close. Lucas nodded. It always is, but we held our ground, that's what matters. In the engine room, Daniel finally allowed himself to relax. The nanotech had performed flawlessly, and Athena's calculations had been spot on. As he wiped the sweat from his brow, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had taken its first step toward becoming a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. And somewhere deep in space, the message echoed once more. Human ships are special, and you'll soon find out why. The battle had reached a turning point. The Krillian fleet, once confident in their overwhelming power, now found themselves struggling to keep up with the relentless adaptability of the SS Vanguard. Their boarding parties, sent to disable the human ship from within, had been repelled with brutal efficiency by Sergeant Emily Ford and her Marines. The aliens were disoriented, confused, and ultimately defeated by traps laid by engineer Daniel Kim and his team. Now, as the remnants of the Krillian forces regrouped, their leader, Vorthak, seethed with frustration. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Lucas Hayes stood tall, his sharp blue eyes scanning the tactical display. The Krillians were retreating, but Lucas knew better than to let his guard down. These creatures were cunning, and they wouldn't give up easily. He turned to Lieutenant Rachel Blake, who was already analyzing the enemy's movements. "They're pulling back," Rachel said, her voice calm but tense. "But look at their formation. They're clustering around their flagship." Lucas nodded. "They're protecting something. Either their leader is panicking or they've got another trick up their sleeve." He leaned closer to the screen, studying the patterns carefully. "Whatever it is, we need to stay one step ahead." In the engine room, Daniel worked frantically to ensure the ship's systems remained stable. The nanotechnology coating the Vanguard's hull had performed admirably, repairing damage almost instantly and adapting to every new threat. But the strain on the ship's core was growing. Athena, the artificial intelligence that powered the vessel's adaptive systems, continued to process data at lightning speed, feeding updates to the crew. "Core temperatures rising," Daniel muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "If we push the nanotech too hard, we risk overloading the entire system." Emily appeared beside him, her rifle slung across her shoulder. "How much longer can we keep this up?" she asked, her tone serious. "As long as we have to," Daniel replied, though his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "Just keep those aliens off our backs and I'll handle the rest." Emily gave him a quick nod before heading back toward the corridors, ready to defend the ship against any further incursions. Meanwhile, aboard the Krillian flagship, Vorthak paced furiously. His crimson armor gleamed under the dim red lights, but his usual confidence was shaken. For the first time in his reign, he faced an enemy he couldn't understand. The humans weren't just fighting. They were learning, adapting, and countering every move he made. It was as if the Vanguard itself was alive, evolving faster than his engineers could analyze. "This cannot continue," Vorthak roared, slamming his clawed fist onto the command console. "We are the Krillian Empire, we do not retreat." His advisors flinched at his outburst but dared not speak. They had seen what happened to those who questioned their leader's decisions. After a moment of silence, one of them finally spoke up. "My lord, perhaps we should consider a different approach. Their ship is clearly unique, but it may have limitations. If we can isolate it—" "No!" Vorthak interrupted, his tail lashing angrily. "We will crush them outright. Prepare the Void Lance." The Void Lance was the Krillian Empire's most devastating weapon, a superweapon capable of tearing apart planets with a single blast. It was rarely used, reserved only for the most dire situations. But Vorthak saw no other option. If brute force wouldn't work, then annihilation would. Back on the Vanguard, alarms blared as sensors detected a massive energy spike emanating from the Krillian flagship. Ensign Michael Carter, stationed at the sensor array, turned to Lucas, with wide eyes. "Captain, they're charging some kind of weapon. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Lucas frowned. "How long until it's ready?" "Minutes, maybe less," Michael replied, his voice trembling slightly. "If they fire it, we won't survive." Rachel stepped forward, her expression grim. We need to act fast. What's the plan? Lucas thought quickly. The Vanguard had proven itself resilient, but even its advanced systems couldn't withstand a planet-destroying weapon. He glanced at the tactical display again, searching for a solution. Then an idea came to him. Athena, he said, addressing the ship's AI. Can you hack into their systems? Disrupt the weapon before they fire it? Athena's smooth, synthetic voice responded immediately. Attempting infiltration now. Enemy firewalls are strong, but I am bypassing them. Daniel, overhearing the exchange from the engine room, felt a surge of hope. If anyone or anything could pull off such a feat, it was Athena. Still, he knew it wouldn't be easy. The Krillians' technology was highly advanced, and their security measures were likely formidable. Keep the pressure on them, Lucas ordered. Rachel, target their weapons arrays, distract them while Athena works. Rachel complied, directing the Vanguard's turrets to unleash a barrage of precision strikes. Energy beams lanced out, striking key points on the Krillian flagship. Explosions erupted across its surface, forcing the aliens to divert resources to repair the damage. Meanwhile, deep within the ship's systems, Athena waged a silent war against the Krillians' digital defenses. In the corridors, Emily and her Marines remained vigilant, prepared for another boarding attempt. Though the invaders had retreated for now, they all knew it was only a matter of time before they tried again. Emily tightened her grip on her rifle, her sharp eyes scanning the shadows. We're not done yet, she muttered to herself. Stay sharp, everyone. As the minutes ticked by, tension mounted aboard both ships. On the Krillian flagship, Vorthak watched the countdown timer for the Void Lance with growing anticipation. Soon, these insolent humans will learn the price of defiance, he growled, his claws flexing in excitement. But aboard the Vanguard, Athena delivered good news. Firewall breached, accessing primary systems, redirecting energy flow. Lucas exhaled sharply, relief washing over him. Do it, he said. Disable that weapon. Athena executed the final phase of the hack, rerouting the immense energy stored in the Void Lance back into the Krillian flagship itself. Alarms blared throughout the alien vessel as its crew scrambled to shut down the malfunctioning system. But it was too late. With a deafening roar, the weapon discharged, not outward but inward, consuming the flagship in a catastrophic explosion. The shockwave rippled through space, scattering the remaining Krillian ships. Panic spread among their ranks as they realized their leader, Vorthak, was gone. Without his commanding presence, the fleet broke formation and fled, leaving the Vanguard victorious. On the bridge, the crew erupted into cheers. Rachel let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, while Lucas allowed himself a small smile. Good work, everyone, he said, his voice filled with pride. We did it. In the engine room, Daniel slumped against a console, exhausted but triumphant. That was too close, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. Next time, let's try not to wait until the last second, okay? Emily chuckled as she rejoined the group. Where's the fun in that? Though the immediate threat had passed, Lucas knew the galaxy was far from safe. The Krillians were just one of countless civilizations out there, many of which might see humanity as weak or insignificant. But today the crew of the Vanguard had proven otherwise. They had shown that humans were capable of standing toe-to-toe with even the most advanced species, and winning. As the ship drifted silently through space, surrounded by the wreckage of the Krillian fleet, Lucas stared out at the stars. Somewhere, out there, other threats awaited, but for now, humanity had earned a moment of peace. And somewhere deep in the void, the message echoed once more. Human ships are special, and you'll soon find out why. The victory over the Krillian fleet was sweet, but it came at a cost. The SS Vanguard had endured relentless attacks, and while its adaptive nanotechnology had kept the ship intact, the strain on its systems was undeniable. In the engine room, engineer Daniel Kim worked tirelessly to stabilize the core temperature. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he adjusted settings and rerouted power to prevent an overload. Come on, hold together, Daniel muttered under his breath, his fingers flying across the console. The nanotech was still repairing minor damage, but the energy surge from Athena's hack into the Krillian flagship had pushed the ship's systems to their limits. He glanced at the readouts again, his expression tense. "We're not out of the woods yet." Sergeant Emily Ford entered the engine room, her rifle slung over her shoulder. She looked around, taking in the dim lighting and the faint hum of machinery. "How bad is it?" she asked, her voice steady but concerned. "It's touch and go," Daniel admitted, not looking up from his work. "If we don't ease off soon, the core might destabilize. We need time to cool down the systems." Emily nodded. "I'll keep an eye out for trouble. You focus on keeping this thing running." She turned to leave but paused. "And Daniel, don't let us blow up." He managed a weak smile. "No promises." On the bridge, Captain Lucas Hayes stood with his arms crossed, staring at the tactical display. The remnants of the Krillian fleet had fled, leaving behind debris and unanswered questions. Their leader, Vorthak, was gone, obliterated by his own weapon thanks to Athena's intervention. But Lucas knew better than to celebrate too soon. The galaxy was vast, and news of this defeat would spread quickly among alien civilizations. "We've made a statement today," Lucas said aloud, though no one responded immediately. Lieutenant Rachel Blake, seated at her station, glanced up at him. Her dark eyes were sharp, always assessing, always calculating. "Yes, but statements like this tend to draw attention," she replied. "Other species will hear about what happened here. Some might see us as a threat. Others might see us as prey." Lucas nodded. "Exactly. That's why we need to be ready for whatever comes next." He turned to Ensign Michael Carter, who manned the sensor array. "Keep scanning for any signs of movement. If another fleet shows up, I want to know before they're on top of us." "Aye, Captain," Michael replied, his fingers moving deftly over the controls. Rachel leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Humanity had taken a bold step forward today, proving that it could stand against even the most advanced foes. But survival in the galaxy wasn't just about winning battles. It was about strategy, alliances, and understanding the rules of interstellar politics. And humans were still newcomers to the game. "Admiral Carter will want a full report," Rachel said after a moment. Admiral Samantha Carter, stationed on Earth, was monitoring the situation closely. She had trusted Lucas and his crew to handle the Krillians, but now that the immediate threat was neutralized, she would expect answers and plans for the future. Lucas sighed. "Yeah, I know. Let's make sure we have something solid to give her." He turned to Rachel. "Draft a message explaining what happened. Include details about the Void Lance and how Athena managed to turn it against them. But leave out specifics about the nanotech. For now, that stays classified." Rachel nodded. "Understood. Anything else?" "For now, just stay alert. We don't know if those Krillians will regroup or if someone else will come knocking." Lucas's gaze returned to the stars outside the viewport. Somewhere out there, other threats lurked. Today's victory had bought humanity some breathing room, but the war for survival was far from over. Back on Earth, Admiral Samantha Carter reviewed the incoming transmission from the Vanguard. Her office was sleek and modern, with large screens, displaying real-time data from across the solar system. As she listened to Lucas's report, her expression remained calm, though her mind was anything but. "So the Krillians are gone for now," she said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. She tapped a finger against her desk, considering the implications. Humanity had proven itself capable of defending its interests, but the galaxy was unpredictable. News of this battle would travel fast, and not everyone would react kindly to the rise of a new player on the cosmic stage. She opened a secure channel to Earth Command. "Initiate Phase 2, she instructed. Phase 2 involved deploying additional ships and resources to reinforce humanity's presence in deep space. It also meant reaching out to potential allies, species that might share humanity's desire for peace and cooperation, or at least mutual benefit." As the orders went out, Admiral Carter allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. Humanity had come so far in such a short time. From primitive rockets to advanced starships equipped with adaptive nanotechnology, the progress was staggering. But progress alone wouldn't guarantee survival. What set humans apart, their ingenuity, resilience, and determination, would need to be matched with wisdom and caution. Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, the crew settled into a cautious routine. They couldn't afford to relax completely, not when danger could emerge at any moment. Sergeant Emily Ford led patrols through the ship, ensuring all access points remained secure. Though the immediate threat had passed, she didn't trust the silence. Space was vast, and enemies rarely announced themselves until it was too late. In the mess hall, the mood was subdued. The crew exchanged quiet words, sharing stories of the battle and speculating about what lay ahead. Daniel sat at a corner table picking at his food without much appetite. His mind was still on the ship's systems, wondering how long they could keep up with the demands placed upon them. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Emily said, sliding into the seat across from him. She placed her tray on the table and gave him a pointed look. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't coffee?" Daniel shrugged. "Doesn't matter. The ship needs me." "And we need you alive," Emily countered. "You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Eat." Reluctantly, Daniel picked up his fork and took a bite. Emily watched him for a moment, then softened her tone. "We did good out there, you know. Whatever happens next, we'll handle it. Together." Daniel nodded, grateful for her support. "Thanks, Emily." As the hours passed, the Vanguard drifted silently through space, a lone sentinel among the stars. Its crew remained vigilant, aware that their actions had changed the course of history. Humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage, not with diplomacy or treaties, but with strength and resolve. But as the message echoed once more, "Human, ships are special, and you'll soon find out why," it carried both a promise and a warning. Promises of innovation, adaptability, and courage. Warnings of consequences for those who underestimated Earth's newest explorers. Captain Lucas Hayes stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the endless expanse of stars. He felt a mix of pride and unease. Pride in his crew, who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. Unease at the challenges that lay ahead. Humanity had taken its first steps into the unknown, but the journey was far from over. Somewhere in the depths of space, someone, or something, was watching. And, sooner or later, they would act. The SS Vanguard continued its journey through the vast emptiness of space, its crew moving with a mix of caution and quiet confidence. The battle against the Krillian fleet had left them battered but victorious, and though the immediate threat had passed, the tension aboard the ship remained palpable. Captain Lucas Hayes stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. His mind was racing, not just with thoughts of what lay ahead, but also with the weight of responsibility. Humanity's survival in the galaxy now rested heavily on his shoulders. Back on Earth, Admiral Samantha Carter had mobilized reinforcements. A fleet of smaller, agile ships, each equipped with advanced weaponry and manned by elite pilots, was en route to join the Vanguard. These fighters were designed for speed and precision, capable of darting around larger vessels and delivering devastating blows. But even as preparations continued, Admiral Carter knew that humanity couldn't rely solely on brute force. Diplomacy would play a crucial role in securing alliances, especially with species that might view humans as equals, or at least potential partners. Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, engineer Daniel Kim worked tirelessly to stabilize the ship's systems. The nanotechnology coating the hull had performed admirably during the battle, repairing damage almost instantly and adapting to every new threat. But the strain on the core was growing, and Daniel feared that another major engagement could push the ship beyond its limits. He spent hours recalibrating the energy flow, rerouting power from non-essential systems to ensure the core remained stable. Sergeant Emily Ford kept her team sharp, leading regular drills and patrols throughout the ship. Though the Krillians had fled, she didn't trust the silence. Space was unpredictable and enemies rarely announced themselves until it was too late. Her Marines were ready for anything, their rifles loaded and their reflexes honed to perfection. On the bridge, Lieutenant Rachel Blake monitored long-range sensors, searching for any sign of movement. The debris field left behind by the Krillian flagship drifted silently in the void, a grim reminder of the battle that had taken place. But beyond that there was nothing. No incoming ships, no distress signals, no signs of life. It was eerily quiet. "Anything yet?" Lucas asked, stepping onto the bridge. Rachel shook her head. "Nothing. Either they're regrouping somewhere, far away, or they've decided we're not worth the trouble." Lucas frowned. "I doubt it's the latter. Word will spread about what happened here. Other species will hear about it and they'll come looking." Rachel nodded. She understood the stakes. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with even the most advanced foes. But victory came with consequences. News of the Vanguard's abilities would travel fast, and not everyone would react kindly to the rise of a new player on the galactic stage. Far away, in the shadowy depths of space, remnants of the Krillian fleet regrouped under the command of a subordinate, leader named Zorthan. Forthak's death had left a power vacuum, and while some argued for retreat, others saw an opportunity to strike back. Zorthan, ambitious and ruthless, vowed to avenge his fallen commander. "We underestimated them," Zorthan growled, pacing the bridge of his new flagship, "but we won't make the same mistake twice." His advisors exchanged uneasy glances. They had witnessed firsthand the capabilities of the human ship, the way it adapted, repaired itself, and turned their own weapons against them. Even the bow, Void Lance, their most powerful weapon, had been rendered useless. "What do you suggest, Commander?" one of them asked cautiously. Zorthan stopped pacing and turned to face them, his eyes gleaming with determination. "We cannot defeat them alone, but we are not without allies." He tapped a clawed finger against the console. "Send a message to the Zelnari Syndicate. Offer them riches, technology, whatever it takes. Tell them the humans possess something worth stealing." The Zelnari were notorious mercenaries, known for their skill in combat and their lack of loyalty. If anyone could take down the Vanguard, it was them. Unaware of the brewing storm, the crew of the Vanguard prepared for their next move. Admiral Carter's reinforcements were still several days away, leaving the ship vulnerable if another enemy appeared. To buy time, Lucas ordered the crew to maintain a defensive posture while continuing repairs. In the engine room, Daniel finally managed to stabilize the core temperature. Exhausted but relieved, he leaned against a console and closed his eyes. "That should hold for now," he muttered to himself. Just then Emily entered the room, her rifle slung over her shoulder. "How's it looking?" she asked, her tone casual but probing. Daniel straightened up. "Better. Still not perfect, but we're good for a while." Emily nodded. "Good. Because we might need everything we've got soon." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, alarms blared throughout the ship. Both of them rushed to the nearest terminal where a flashing alert indicated multiple contacts approaching at high speed. "Report!" Lucas barked as he entered the bridge moments later. Rachel glanced at her console. "Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace, unknown configuration, not Krillian." Lucas frowned. "Zelnari?" "It's possible," Rachel replied. "They're fast. Too fast for us to outrun." The Zelnari fleet consisted of sleek, jagged vessels that moved like predators stalking their prey. Their weapons were cutting edge, and their pilots were among the best in the galaxy. As they surrounded the Vanguard, Zorthan watched from a distance, confident that his plan would succeed. "They think they're untouchable," Zorthan sneered. "Let's see how special they really are." On the bridge of the Vanguard, Lucas quickly assessed the situation. The Zelnari outnumbered them, and their agility made them difficult targets. But the Vanguard had one advantage: Athena. The AI had already begun analyzing the enemy's movements, calculating patterns, and identifying weaknesses. "Athena, prioritize evasive maneuvers," Lucas ordered. "Rachel, target their engines. Disable as many as you can." The Vanguard surged forward, weaving through the chaos as energy blasts streaked past. Its turrets fired in quick succession, striking key points on the Zelnari ships. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, but the mercenaries fought back fiercely, their attacks relentless. In the corridors, Emily led her Marines in preparation for boarding parties. "Stay sharp," she called out. "They're going to try to get inside." Sure enough, the Zelnari deployed pods that latched onto the Vanguard's hull. Alien soldiers poured into the ship, their weapons blazing. Emily and her team met them head-on, exchanging fire in narrow corridors. The sound of plasma bolts echoed through the metal walls as both sides fought for control. Back on the bridge, Lucas monitored the battle closely. The Zelnari were skilled, but the Vanguard's adaptive systems gave them an edge. Every attack was analyzed, every strategy countered. Athena coordinated the ship's defenses, ensuring that critical areas remained secure. Core temperature rising again. Daniel reported from the engine room. "If we keep this up, we'll overload." Lucas clenched his jaw. "Hold on, Daniel. We're almost there." Just then, a transmission came through. It was Admiral Carter. "Captain Hayes, reinforcements are en route. ETA 10 minutes. 10 minutes too late," Lucas muttered under his breath. Turning to Rachel, he gave a sharp nod. "Prepare the EMP pulse. We'll have to risk it." The EMP pulse was a last resort weapon, designed to disable all nearby electronics. It would leave the Vanguard temporarily vulnerable, but it was the only way to stop the Zelnari fleet. Rachel hesitated for a moment, then activated the system. A massive wave of electromagnetic energy surged outward, engulfing the Zelnari ships. Their engines sputtered, their weapons went offline, and their communication systems fell silent. One by one, the alien vessels drifted helplessly in space. On the Vanguard, the lights flickered briefly as the EMP affected internal systems, but Athena quickly stabilized the ship, bringing everything back online within seconds. As the Zelnari retreated, Zorthan watched in disbelief. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Not by a long shot." When Admiral Carter's reinforcements arrived, they found the Vanguard battered but intact. The crew had held their ground, proving once again that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As the combined fleet regrouped, Lucas addressed his crew. "You did well," he said, his voice filled with pride. "But this is just the beginning. There will be more battles, more challenges, and we'll face them together." Somewhere in the galaxy, the message echoed once more. Human ships are special, and you'll soon find out why. It was a promise, a warning, and a declaration of humanity's resolve to survive, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The aftermath of the battle with the Zelnari left the crew of the SS Vanguard weary but triumphant. The ship had endured yet another grueling fight, its adaptive nanotechnology proving once again to be humanity's greatest asset. Yet, the strain on the vessel and its crew was undeniable. In the engine room, engineer Daniel Kim worked tirelessly to repair the damage caused by the EMP pulse. His hands moved quickly over the consoles, rerouting power and stabilizing systems that had been pushed to their limits. "We're lucky it held together," Daniel muttered to himself, his voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. He glanced. At the readouts, his expression tense. "But we can't keep doing this forever." Sergeant Emily Ford entered the engine room, her rifle slung over her shoulder. She watched Daniel for a moment before speaking. "You look like you haven't slept in days," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. "I'll sleep when we're safe," Daniel replied without looking up. "Right now, I need to make sure the ship stays in one piece." Emily sighed but didn't argue. She knew better than to try changing his mind when he was focused. Instead, she leaned against the wall, her sharp eyes scanning the room. "We've got reinforcements now," she said after a moment. "Admiral Carter's fleet is here. That should buy us some breathing room." Daniel nodded absently, his attention still fixed on the task at hand. "Breathing room doesn't mean we're out of danger. If anything, it means more eyes are on us." Emily couldn't disagree. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with even the most advanced species, but every victory came with consequences. News of the Vanguard's abilities would spread quickly through the galaxy, drawing both admirers and enemies. And while Admiral Carter's reinforcements were a welcome addition, they weren't enough to ensure humanity's survival in the long run. On the bridge, Captain Lucas Hayes stood with his arms crossed, staring at the tactical display. The combined fleet was impressive, a mix of human ships, each equipped with cutting-edge technology and manned by skilled crews. But Lucas knew that numbers alone wouldn't guarantee success. What set humanity apart wasn't just its weapons or ships. It was its ingenuity, resilience, and determination to adapt. Lieutenant Rachel Blake approached him, her expression thoughtful. "What's next?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. Lucas turned to face her, his piercing blue eyes reflecting both pride and unease. "We keep moving forward," he said firmly. "This battle may be over, but the war for survival is far from won. We need to find allies, species willing to work with us rather than against us." Rachel nodded. "It won't be easy. Most civilizations out there see us as either a threat or an opportunity. That's why we need to show them we're neither," Lucas replied. "We're humans. We adapt, we innovate, and we don't back down." Back on Earth, Admiral Samantha Carter reviewed the latest reports from the Vanguard. Her office was filled with screens displaying data from across the solar system and beyond. Humanity had taken a bold step forward, proving that it could defend its interests in deep space. But the challenges ahead were daunting. The galaxy was vast and humanity was still a newcomer. To survive, they would need more than strength. They would need wisdom. "Initiate Phase 3, Admiral Carter instructed, opening a secure channel to Earth Command. Phase 3 involved reaching out to potential allies, species that might share humanity's desire for peace and cooperation, or at least mutual benefit. It also meant expanding Earth's presence in space, establishing outposts and colonies to serve as footholds in the galaxy." As the orders went out, Admiral Carter allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. Humanity had come so far in such a short time. From primitive rockets to advanced starships equipped with adaptive nanotechnology, the progress was staggering. But progress alone wouldn't guarantee survival. What set humans apart, their ingenuity, resilience, and determination, would need to be matched with caution and diplomacy. Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, the crew settled into a cautious routine. They couldn't afford to relax completely, not when danger could emerge at any moment. Sergeant Emily Ford led patrols through the ship, ensuring all access points remained secure. Though the immediate threat had passed, she didn't trust the silence. Space was vast, and enemies rarely announced themselves until it was too late. In the mess hall, the mood was subdued. The crew exchanged quiet words, sharing stories of the battle and speculating about what lay ahead. Daniel sat at a corner table, picking at his food without much appetite. His mind was still on the ship's systems, wondering how long they could keep up with the demands placed upon them. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Emily said, sliding into the seat across from him. She placed her tray on the table and gave him a pointed look. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't coffee?" Daniel shrugged. "Doesn't matter. The ship needs me." "And we need you alive," Emily countered. "You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Eat." Reluctantly, Daniel picked up his fork and took a bite. Emily watched him for a moment, then softened her tone. "We did good out there, you know. Whatever happens next, we'll handle it. Together." Daniel nodded, grateful for her support. "Thanks, Emily." As the hours passed, the Vanguard drifted silently through space, a lone sentinel among the stars. Its crew remained vigilant, aware that their actions had changed the course of history. Humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage, not with diplomacy or treaties, but with strength and resolve. But as the message echoed once more, "Human, ships are special and you'll soon find out why," it carried both a promise and a warning. Promises of innovation, adaptability, and courage. Warnings of consequences for those who underestimated Earth's newest explorers. Captain Lucas Hayes stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the endless expanse of stars. He felt a mix of pride and unease. Pride in his crew, who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, unease at the challenges that lay ahead. Humanity had taken its first steps into the unknown, but the journey was far from over. Somewhere, in the depths of space, someone or something was watching, and sooner or later they would act. Lucas clenched his jaw, his resolve strengthening. Humanity had proven it could fight, adapt, and survive. But survival wasn't enough. To thrive in the galaxy, they would need to do more than endure. They would need to lead, and lead they would.